All right, welcome to my TED Talk. Let's talk about sex. Uncomfortable? If you are, you probably grew up in a home like I did. I grew up in a good Christian home where we were taught that abstinence for marriage was the pinnacle of everything, that we were taught to abstain from those feelings, from those actions before marriage, which was great, except a lot of things got brushed under the table, and instead of teaching that something was sacred, it often got turned into something scandalous. Something that I struggle with and many other women struggle with, but I would also include boys in that, is something called the good girl syndrome. The good girl syndrome is, negative or any unproductive thoughts, beliefs, attitude, behaviors, and feelings about sex that inhibits one's responsiveness and enjoyment of the sexual relationship and the sexual experience. This is often manifest in feelings of shame, guilt, embarrassment, or discomfort about sex. Generally, this is the idea that good girls don't. This is the kind of idea that my parents drove home to me, that they were teaching me that good girls don't, you don't, because you're a good girl, you want to be a good girl, you don't have those feelings, you don't express those feelings. And eventually, when you're married, you can. But until then, don't. So, this is something that a lot of parents do, and they think that they're being helpful, but in reality, they're actually damaging their children's potential for their other relationships. And so, this symbol here, just again, the good girls don't. From the perspective of Julie Hanks, of a therapist who has worked with dozens of young newlyweds, I wanted to assure you that these attitudes are not serving your children. In fact, they may even be detrimental to their potential relationships. I've worked with clients who experience so much shame about their body and self-expression that they avoid sex. I've worked with couples so ill-prepared for intimacy that the first sexual experience they shared after marriage was physically and emotionally traumatic. It's time to stop pretending that our children are not sexual beings that will magically become sexual once they are married. We are born sexual beings, and it is normal to have desires and to feel pleasure and to want that. But so many parents and so many of us continue to teach our children that good girls don't, good kids don't, and then it leaves them completely clueless when it is time for them to experience those things and to have those special relationships. Fortunately, I had a wonderful older sister and a mother-in-law who reached out to me and gave me resources. And my husband and I were able to open up dialogue before we got married, before sharing that experience with each other. And as you can see, it worked out. But another thing that I would like to cover a little bit is how teenagers, especially during this time, find how they get this sexual information, how they learn this sexual information, if without the guidance of parents and guardians. So first we have girls. Girls tend to ask their friends. Girls are going to go to each other. They're going to compare notes on periods. They're going to ask about bra sizes. They're going to talk about these sexual feelings that maybe they've been starting to have. Boys, on the other hand, also can ask their friends, but a lot of times they'll ask Google. These boys are going to go to the internet and go to different sources that aren't as reliable, and often this leads to pornography use in the future. And both genders, regardless, girls and boys, they experiment. This experimenting can lead to unsafe sex, to STIs, to porn use, to unwanted pregnancy and abortion, and besides all of the heartache that comes with all of those things. So how do we help our children? How do we teach them? Also from Julie Hanks, from Dr. Julie Hanks, were some ideas, some principles that she wanted to go over in terms of teaching our children how to be safe in sexuality and how to be sexually healthy. So the first concept is that healthy sexuality begins at birth. We don't want to start going straight into things about the who's and the what's in terms of sex right when they're born. But in the very beginning, we can teach young children that their bodies are amazing and that they're capable of so much. When we can provide that positive attitude for children about their bodies, they'll be more comfortable to ask questions. They'll be more comfortable to be confident in what their bodies can do. Principle number 2, make sex an unfolding discussion, not a one-time talk. We see a lot of times that the birds and the bees discussion is a one-time thing in 5th or 6th grade, and then it never gets brought up again. What we really need to do is go through with our children, teaching them about puberty, teaching them the proper anatomical terms for body parts, about sexual feelings, about masturbation, etc. And as we're teaching them, they'll be able to gain a vocabulary that they know how to ask questions. They'll know how to recognize when there are sexual situations that they're in that they're not comfortable with, so they're able to get themselves out of it, or they're able to ask questions. So again, make that an unfolding discussion over time. Principle 3, increase your own sexual comfort level. I think this was something that my mom especially struggled with, that she was just uncomfortable talking about sex. And as such, this is a little bit of a generational issue, as we see. If you, as a parent, are struggling with talking to your kids about sex because it makes you uncomfortable, practice. Practice with your spouse, with a friend, with a sibling, with your parent, if they're still around, or any trusted adult that you feel that you are able to have that open dialogue with. Because again, as you increase your own sexual comfort level, you'll increase your children's comfort level with coming to you, asking questions. Principle number 4, normalize pleasure and avoid sexual shaming. This one's a little bit more tricky, so I'm going to give you an example. So say you are at the store, you're at the grocery store with your little 3-year-old, and your 3-year-old decides to reach their hands in their pants. And it's kind of an uncomfortable thing, and our first reaction would be like, don't do that. But what would be better is to validate them, acknowledge like, oh, that probably feels good. But there's a time and place, and we don't put our hands in our pants. We don't touch our genitals while we're at the grocery store. So we're teaching them that pleasure is good. We normalize pleasure. We allow them to be curious and to, again, ask questions about their own bodies. They can ask questions about yours. I remember having lots of questions. When brothers and sisters are around each other, they're gonna have questions about like, why is my body different from his? And the brother's gonna have the same questions about his sister. And so allowing, again, that open dialogue between them. And principle number 5, address the why and not just what. I think as I've been talking, you may have been thinking about how you want to teach your children about sex and how you want to do that. But it really does come down to the why. If we're teaching on one hand about safe sex, we want to share with them why. These are the reasons why. We want you to be safe. We want you to avoid an unwanted pregnancy. We don't want you to get sick with an STI. And these are the reasons to use condoms. On the other hand, we can teach them that this is why we would love you to stay abstinent until marriage. And these are the reasons why it's so important and it's such a beautiful experience when you can wait. And so teaching them not only the what, but the why. And so we're back to this again. So with the guidance from parents or guardians, this is what teenagers will do. So girls will ask their mom or their dad. Boys can ask their dad or their mom. And both can enjoy that open communication with a trusted parent or other adult. So parents and future parents alike, I invite you, let's talk